Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. Tonight's episode 36. We're going to be doing Name That Stadium, hitting the news from this past week, and then the bulk of the show is going to be talking about what's going on in free agency and some of the trades and releases and the things that kind of tie in with that. And last but not least, we'll wrap it up with our question of the week. So, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man. I tell you, this was a super busy week in the NFL, man. I don't know if it's because of the COVID cap thing or what's going on, but it just seemed like there was a lot more activity than I was expecting for this first week of free agency.
Yeah, it was really frenzied too. It's like you could barely keep up with like on Monday once the legal tampering period kicked
Yeah,
in. It's like all of a sudden it's like 75 different transactions occurs. Like holy shit, I'm barely even processing the last one you just that was just announced, and now you're on like the 17th one. It's like, geez,
yeah, it's nice, but I'm kind of also like, geez, you could have spread it out a little bit, because
yeah.
it seems like it's going to fall off a cliff here any day, and it's just going to get quiet again. So.
Hmm.
Well, cool. All right. Well, here let's kick it over to name that stadium. And so this is the part of the show where, for anybody who's watching, you can see James is out traveling the country. Every week he's got a new stadium in his background, and basically we're just asking our viewers that if you think you know what stadium it is, hit us up in the comments section with your guess. If you're the first person to get the answer right, we'll give you a special shout out next week's show. And so, James, where were you at last week, man? And what was your inspiration?
Well, last week I was in Chicago. I really thought that it was good. Like this past week, there was going to be a trade done with Seattle and Chicago for Russell Wilson. Apparently, the trade was almost agreed to, but Pete Carroll vetoed it because he didn't know
Yeah.
who his quarterback was going to be. And I mean, it's the trade that I heard. It was close to what I thought it was going to be. It was Chicago offered their next three first round picks, their third round pick, and Fuller and Hicks, I believe.
Oh, I
And then
heard it was Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks.
oh, I
There
thought
might
I
have there
heard
might have been some options with the players.
yeah, and it turns out that Fuller they were going to cut anyway. So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. The last one that I read, which I actually had my news for the recap of the week, but we'll just hit it now. It was basically everything you were saying: the three first round picks, the third round pick, and then I heard that the final deal had Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks in the deal, and basically, yep, the quarterback thing was a concern for Carroll, and um, and then I heard basically the other part of it was just that it was a sweet deal, except that Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks are both already very highly paid, and they're on the backside of the career. And so it was kind of just like, could you really give up a generational talent, for guys that are, they're still great. I think they're still both playing at a high level, but it's just, it was just a little bit disjointed, I guess. But
yeah,
hey,
I
you,
mean
you can't fault them for trying, man. They
yeah,
definitely they put out a strong offer.
you I disagree. Like
You
you
don't think
gotta
that that's a strong offer? Three first round picks and two like
it's
perennial Pro Bowl players?
it's a strong offer. Okay, it's a strong offer, but it's not the best offer they could have given.
Okay.
They, you have that type of situation. You know Wilson wants to go to Chicago. You get the goddamn deal done. You just do what it needs to be done to get the deal done. Okay, so you don't like this. What do you want me to add into it to make you say yes?
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen in Chicago? Russell Wilson's going to go to Miami and then Chicago's going to be like, oh, we could have had him. Now look at Miami. They're fucking stacked and winning Super Bowls, and we still haven't had a quarterback since like 1950.
You just plant these seeds, man. And I was a little pissed off at you when you were talking about Chicago last week, even though it was a real thing. But I think I'd like to see him end up in Miami. That'd be a pretty sweet landing spot for him.
Yeah. So uh, I just picked Miami because I think Miami, you could send back to who could be the quarterback of the future, or I mean, hell, you send back what's Miami, the number three pick, where you
Yep.
could get Trey Lance, or you could get
Yep.
Zach Wilson, whoever the Jets pass up on, because obviously Lawrence is going number one.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Miami, they got plenty of draft capital, and yeah, they got some options. Um, okay. Well, here we're like squarely into our recap of the week, so I guess I better just properly segue it there. And yeah, the Chicago thing for Russell Wilson fell through. It was a sweet try. I guess, yeah, there probably still are some teams hanging out there that are thinking about taking a shot. I've not really heard anything yet, but Miami, they've got some options. Um, Other than that, the big news from the week was Drew Brees finally announcing his retirement, and just one of those guys, man. Heck of a career, Hall of Fame career. I was actually just looking it up earlier. I got it on my screen behind me. All of his NFL records. Most career passing yards, most career completions. I mean, it's just best career completion percentage with 2,000 plus attempts, most seasons with 5,000 plus passing yards, most completions in a season. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And this is a guy that I remember when he came into the league with the Chargers, and it was one of those things where it's like, he's not quite tall enough, the stature's not quite there, and tons of people knocked him, and he just every year got better and better and better. And the rotator cuff thing, he ended up in New Orleans, and just a hell of an athlete, man, and just super smart. He just committed himself to it, and it's like he just willed himself to be in a Hall of Fame freaking quarterback, man.
Yeah, like he's one of the best free agent signings I can think of off the top of my head in sports, like history, basically.
Yeah,
Like it rivals like Reggie White signing with Green Bay,
yeah,
and then it's possibly better than that. Like, and to think with the rotator cuff, if it weren't for that play where he tore the rotator cuff, San Diego at the time was going to move on from Philip Rivers and was going to keep Breeze, but since he tore his rotator cuff, that changed the direction of
yeah.
of the Chargers, who they were going to go with, Breeze, and then he was going to sign with Miami, and Saban wanted him in Miami, and the doctors failed him on the physical, so they didn't sign him, and I mean, then Saban leaves Miami and goes to Alabama and becomes like the winningest
Oh
coach
yeah.
in history of college football. Like hit, Drew Brees and how that rotator cuff injury happened changed the face of like three franchises.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because yeah, it was actually a pretty dramatic thing. It's not just like, oh, he went here and had a good career and this and that. No, there were a lot of tie-ins that yeah, it affected a lot of different things. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it too, before Brees signed with New Orleans, there was all those rumors coming out that the Saints were going to move to San Antonio because they were just pathetic and weren't drawing in New
Yeah.
Orleans.
Yeah, they had a rough run for a while, man. He totally resurrected that franchise. Um, okay, so yeah, hey, he's going to the booth next, and then the Hall of Fame sometime after that. One hell of a career, and good for that guy. In other news, not so positive news, you've been hearing all this stuff going on with Deshaun Watson. The last I heard, it's up to 7 civil suits with allegations of sexual harassment and possibly sexual assault. Some very serious allegations here, and you see
It's
the
actually
moves.
12 now.
Well, it's 12 now. Holy shit!
Yeah.
I mean, it's escalating like really quickly. And so you see what the team is doing. They brought in Tyrod Taylor, which at first looked like, hey, that's a great similar style quarterback to Deshaun Watson to have as your backup. And so it was a good logical fit. Now they trade for Finley from Cincinnati. and you start wondering if the team's hedging their bet a little bit here, that maybe some of this stuff with Watson is going to take a turn for the worst, and they're going to have to make some plans without him. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on with any of these cases. It just this whole thing is it's looking pretty ugly, man.
Yeah, it is looking pretty ugly. And the other day on sports radio, they were running down like some of the stuff that was going on, and like just the details and the lawsuit filings with like specific dates and Instagram messages and this and that. It looks pretty bad. And when it was just like Watson had denied it and said, "Oh, it's just a money grab," but if you actually look into the lawsuits, it's like the people that are filing lawsuits are asking for $500.
Yeah, they're not looking for big money. It's more about getting it out in the public and making people know. And
Hmm.
yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it blows my mind to think that it could be true, but at the same time, it's like we've seen some of these big, like athlete, celebrity type people that you would just never expect this stuff from, and then it comes out, and you're like, holy cow! Like, I mean, it just, yeah, you want to believe that they're good people and that they're role models, but they're not all that case. And so, whether that's true with this guy or not remains to be seen. We'll find out. It just, man, these are some crazy times, man.
Yeah, and like before this, everybody would say he's a stand-up guy. Like I
Yeah,
mean, his first paycheck he gave to the cafeteria workers at what is it, Energy Field or wherever Houston plays to help them because they had the hurricane and
yeah,
stuff. And so it's like everything you see about him, he appears to be a stand-up guy, and then all this stuff's coming out, and it's like, whoa, wait
yeah,
a minute.
yeah. What's happening here? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where this goes, but it's not really looking that good.
All right. Well, yeah. Hey, we might be talking about it again next week. All right. So in other news, basically those were the big things I hit. Is there anything that you saw from this past week that you think we should be touching on, or do you want to just jump over and start talking about this first wave of free agency?
Oh, the TV contract.
Oh yeah, here, give me the rundown of that. Yeah, you were all over that Amazon stuff, and there's
Yeah.
been more
So,
that's come out. Yeah, yeah,
so it's like a 10-year contract. It starts in 2023, I think, and it's 100 total between all the contracts. It's $100 billion over the life of the contract. It's freaking like 10 billion a year. So I mean, and then there's little things like Amazon Prime Video is going to have exclusively um, Thursday Night Football with like the local markets will get it over the air, and ABC, ESPN is going to have a Super Bowl over that 10-year period, and then the other three networks, NBC, CBS, and Fox, are going to have three each, and it's
yeah.
just. But I mean, $10 billion a year is
It's big money,
ridiculous. Like
man.
almost every one of the contracts with like Fox was paying $1 billion, and now they're at paying 2.2, I think it is, and
Okay.
CBS was paying close to a billion a year, and now they're at 2.1, and it's just it pretty much doubled.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about it, a week or two ago when the Amazon news came out, and just some of that stuff makes me nervous because it might not be good for the end user
Hmm.
if Amazon has exclusive rights to Thursday night football, and it just, I guess we'll see how all that plays out. It just it's like one of these things. I was just reading about all the streaming, and it's like, who's winning the streaming wars, and it's like a joke. It's like, well, everybody's winning because they're making all the end users basically buy all the services because they all
Yeah,
have their certain rights to certain shows and certain things. And it's like, people, there's a cross section. Well, I want to watch a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And it's like, oh, well, then, hey, congratulations. You just had to pay for three services. And so it's,
mhm.
just the whole thing. I don't know, dude. It just kind of chaps my ass a little bit, but it's just the way the world's going, man.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the one thing I forgot about in the contract was for Monday Night Football, there's flex schedule capability into it.
Oh,
So
wow. So if you
you
get
can
like
flex a
some
game
dud
from
teams,
Sunday to Monday night, or which is interesting.
yeah, that'll be a change. Okay, so anything else news-wise you want to hit on?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I figure for tonight, we've got all 32 teams we want to run through and just kind of provide a little bit of a recap on what happened in free agency this week and, just like some quick takes on what we like or don't like and some stuff like that. But, with it being all 32 teams we're going to touch on, we'll probably kind of have to burn through some of them or we'll be talking all night. And so, as you and I discussed before the show, basically, we're going to be going through an NFL.com article that has all of the big moves captured by division. And so it's not going to be an alphabetical thing or anything, but I believe it starts in the AFC and it works its way down through the NFC. And so, with all that being the case, let's just kick it off. I'm
Before we
showing
go
AF.
there with Watson, apparently it's now turned into a criminal investigation.
Well, I gotta believe, yeah, if you got that many people involved in this, there's got to be some kind of criminal part to it. But yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it's just so yeah. Apparently, the attorney's saying he's been contacted by the Houston Police Department to get in touch with his clients.
Okay. All right. So NFL free agency. We're going to start with the AFC East, and the first team we got on the list here is the Buffalo Bills. They've been fairly busy, and I think most of what they've been doing is hanging on to some of their key guys. Daryl Williams on the offensive line, John Feliciano. They hung on to linebacker Matt Milano, which is good. I mean, they were a deep playoff team, and so the priority is trying to bring as many of those guys back. And then some of the guys that they lost, like John Brown, basically they're replacing him with Emmanuel Sanders. And then the move that it's been getting a fair amount of news is signing Mitch Trubisky on a 1 year deal for $2.5 million. I thought about that move, and a lot kind of like I liked the Tyrod Taylor behind Deshaun Watson sort of pairing. You got similar kind of quarterbacks. I think Mitch Trubisky. I wouldn't say necessarily a poor man's version of Josh Allen, but I think you can say he's close because he is fairly mobile, and he's got a capable arm, and so I don't think that they got to change their offense a ton if something happened to Josh Allen. Trubisky can come in and kind of keep it, running afloat with whatever their game plan is. And honestly, I was surprised. 1 year for $2.5 million. I thought that was a pretty good deal for Trubisky, man. He has actually shown some talent, even though it's been, mostly rocky in Chicago. I thought he was going to get more money than that.
Yeah. So I laugh at the 1 year for 2.5 billion because that's exactly what the Lions gave to Tim Boyle.
Okay, yeah,
So
basically somebody that's not on anybody's radar, and Trubisky's
yeah,
getting that same dollar amount. Yeah.
yeah, former number two pick, but I think I really like them signing Trubisky. You're right. He's not Josh Allen, but he's similar style. He can in that offense. They won't have to change it. Like when Allen was out last year, then they went to Barkley. It's a completely different style of quarterback.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to change your game plan. So with the similar style quarterback, you can you can keep the same game plan. And I mean, they're paying the insurance, and it's like Philadelphia in what was it, 17, 18, 17, 18. What year did Philadelphia win the Super Bowl?
Oh, it was just a few years ago. It's hard to believe that the
Let me
team has
see.
turned the way they have, but yeah, I'd
Last
have
year
to.
was okay. So it was the Bucks. Then it was Kansas City. Then it was before that was
It
New
was
England.
2018. Yeah,
Yeah.
2018.
So the 2017 season, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, and then the 18 Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the insurance policy of Nick Foles,
Oh,
and
paid huge dividends. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Well, what
so
else you seeing on Buffalo? I mean, this is definitely an under the radar move, but I saw they signed Taiwan Jones to a 1 year deal. Honestly, I didn't even realize he was still in the league, and so I just kind of thought, good for that guy, man. These running backs, man, they have such a short shelf life nowadays that when I saw that name pop up, I was like, oh man, good for him, dude. He's still kicking it.
yeah, I really like them re-signing Milano. Like I had everything I was reading over coming leading into free agency was that they were going to let Milano go.
Yeah.
And I was running under that assumption. And then I really like the fact that they re-signed him. I think he's a key piece on that defense. If you look at how they played with him versus without him, they were a completely different team. And I think when he played, they lost one or two games, and the rest of the games were when he didn't play. I think they lost one. I think it was just the playoff game when he played, and then
Yeah.
all their other losses, he was out. But they allowed more points without him, and just allowed. It was a worse defense. So he was
Yeah.
he was a
Well,
key
and
piece,
it
and it
and
was
yeah,
great
I
back.
and I had given you my opinion on it is that I'm not like a huge Matt Milano fan. I don't want to take anything away from the guy, but I think he's great for that team. I was just hesitant to see where he would end up elsewhere, and could he have that same kind of success? Because I think it just he fits in with Sean McDermott and what he's doing there, and just I think he's very valuable to them. I just don't know that a lot of what he's doing is going to be as successful elsewhere. But it all depends on where you end up, to be honest. And I'm just glad he stayed where he was at because it's a good fit, obviously.
hmm And then and the Emmanuel Sanders, I think that's a huge upgrade over John Brown. I mean, John Brown did fine last year, but Sanders is just that a step up, and Sanders could be a number one receiver somewhere.
Yeah, I think he's definitely declined. But if he can get healthy and well, stay healthy, and yeah, he definitely has potential. I like John Brown, but he missed a lot of playing time really over the course of his career. Um, but yeah, I think they did a great job backfilling him. I think Emmanuel Sanders should be able to step in and be rock solid, and so that's a good deal. All right, so let's move on here. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins, and just kind of like skimming through the list. I think probably the big thing that pops out is that they signed Will Fuller to a 1 year deal for 10.6 million, fully guaranteed. Looks like it's got another 3 million in incentives. Aside from that, they traded to get Bernardrick McKinney, the linebacker from Houston. They shipped off defensive end Shaq Lawson. And they made the trade with Tennessee for Isaiah Wilson, give them a guy on the offensive line. I told you last week I thought that was good for these guys to be doing. This one's kind of flying under the radar, but running back Malcolm Brown signing a 1 year deal. I like him. Maybe he's that hammer that they were looking for. The guy that what's his face, the old Chicago and then Philly guy that just didn't seem to work out with him last year, but maybe this
Oh,
will be their answer. Um, and then they signed Jacoby Brissett to be the backup quarterback. And this is one, so it's a 1 year, $5 million contract with a max value of 7.5. I would have thought Trubisky would have gotten closer to something like that, but who knows what was going on there. But before I pass it off to you, the one thing that I had to point out on this one, because this is another one of these deals that just kind of chapped my ass a little bit, is they signed Justin Coleman for 1 year up to 2.75 million. This is a guy that the Lions just signed a couple years ago in free agency on a 4 year, $36 million deal, and the new regime has dropped him. It just blows my mind how far off we are on the market for some of these guys. And I know Coleman was hot when we got him a few years ago, but you don't go from a 9 million salary to less than 3 in a couple years without somebody just like grossly misjudging their capability. I don't know. Just I had to point that out, man. I'm just glad that the Lions blew it up and we're starting fresh. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree. That's the Lions. I agree with you on the Lions. It's like how the fuck do you pay him that much when he gets 2.75? Maybe the 2.75 is because he's coming off basically shitty performance in Detroit. I also like the fact that they're kind of with Will Fuller and Devontae Parker. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, that's a big receiver room right there. And then you're trying Malcolm Brown. He has, he's what, 5 years in, 4 years in. He has 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards
yep.
total. I mean, his career average is 4 yards a carry. So I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's played 6 seasons. So he's going into a seventh year. And I mean, he's never really been in that starter role, but I mean, to average about 4 yards a carry, that's pretty good.
It's respectable. Yeah.
So I mean, I like that signing for them. I'm excited about what I see, the potential I see in Miami. Plus, they're shoring up that offensive line, just trying to make sure that they protect whether it's Tua or other possible traded for quarterbacks that to move forward. But this team is going to be a playoff team this year, guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah, and man, we talked about it in the off season last year that we thought that these guys were killing it, and we had no idea that they were going to have as good of a year as they did because they were starting from freaking scratch, man. They had just blown it up a year ago, and they had a great off season last year. They're off to a start here with a great off season this year. I'm super pumped for this team.
Yeah, and they have the right coach down there. I mean, 2 years ago, when I mean they were blew it up and they won what, 6 games still.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so next up, we got the New England Patriots, and we talked a little bit about this last week. They re-signed Cam Newton. He's getting a little bit more money this time around. Well, potentially, there's a lot of incentives here, but could go up to 13.6 million. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but you explained all the logic behind it, and I thought made great sense. I totally get it. Other than him, the Patriots free agency wise, they've been one of the big spenders this year, which made sense because they were sitting on a lot of cap space. They went out, they got Nelson Aguilar at wide receiver. They doubled up on tight end, which I'm actually a big fan of. I know that they've been taking some heat by different kind of critics here, but they nabbed Jonnu Smith and then went right back to the well and got Hunter Henry. They made a trade for offensive tackle Trent Brown. They brought back center David Andrews. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, probably the other big ones that are worth mentioning are they signed linebacker Matt Judon. They brought back Kyle Van Noy, who was just released by the Dolphins, and they signed safety Jalen Mills. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that they're doing, and the thing that I keep hearing is people poking at the tight end situation, and they're like, well, if Belichick would have hit on his tight end picks a couple years ago, he wouldn't have had to do this. And he's got that egg on his face, and now this is his way of kind of covering up his mistake. And you could say that all you want, okay? Nobody bats 1,000 when it comes to draft picks, and tight ends are actually fairly tough to find. There's really in any given year only a handful of them that rise to the top, and he arguably just took two of them and put them on his team. And this is a team that in the past has shown that when they have good tight ends, it's a freaking phenomenal offense. And so, I'm hoping they do something at quarterback other than Cam Newton. But, even if they roll with him for another year, this sets that offense up. They can be a run first offense with these tight ends. They gave him those big body targets that we were talking about a week ago. And they made the adjustments on the offensive line. They went out, they got a bunch of guys on defense. I still think they got some work to do, but I'm pretty impressed with what the Patriots have done so far. My opinion. What do you think, man?
I'm really impressed with what the Patriots have done so far. I think Belichick is looking at it and he's like, I have the space. I'm gonna spend it. I agree. I agree with you. They need to do something at quarterback. I'm hearing rumblings that they that moves our potential, and either moves or drafting a quarterback
Gotcha.
are what they're going to do. I mean, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I heard Jonnu Smith, and I was like, okay. So I assumed Henry was going to resign with the Chargers because
Yeah.
I thought his only landing spot was it was either going to be New England or the Chargers. I didn't think that New England was going to sign both big name tight ends that were free agents, and I literally gasped when I heard the news that they signed Hunter Henry. Like it was just like that's got to be a joke.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
didn't. You don't hear that teams doubling down on tight end like that.
yeah, and I think with signing Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, signing Judon is flying way under the radar. Like Judon is a huge addition to that defense.
Oh yeah.
Um, and also one thing that happened this week was Chung retired.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. He was there a long time, man. He was there a long
Hmm.
time, and played great in that secondary. And yeah, they're gonna. I mean, hey, it's been a long career. I'm sure it was time to move on, but yeah, he was a big piece of that defense for a long time.
Yeah, and then they're shoring up their offensive line, getting in the pieces. I was surprised that they let Dooney go, but I mean
Yeah.
it's this offense is going to look a lot different than it did last year, and I think it's the recognition that that last year the problem was they didn't have the talent in the offense, and as
Yeah.
opposed to not being just Cam not being able to play. What did he have, like six touchdowns and 12 picks last
It,
year?
it, it was a pretty rough performance for him. But it was both sides of the ball. They were
Yeah,
bare. All the cupboards were bare in New England last year, and they're stocking them back up, man.
yeah. So it's like, and then with Newton, like his contract that they're paying him. I mean, it's a backup contract. It's not a starter's contract. I mean, it could go into a starter's contract with all the incentives in there, but he could easily end up being the backup quarterback there.
Yeah, it is flexible, and that is important to point out. I think that was good to touch on. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, the final team of the AFC East, we got the New York Jets. This is a team that's basically got their own version of a rebuild going. They got the new head coach in, Robert Saleh, and just kind of looking at what they've done, I was a little bit nervous that they would focus too much on the offense because sometimes you see that happen with these rookie head coaches. They'll go the opposite of what their strength is. But I think they did okay here. On the offensive side, they re-signed Josh Adams at running back, who he played fairly well for them when he got in. They brought in Corey Davis at wide receiver and Keelan Cole, which is, that's one that's a little bit under the radar. I think he gives them potential as a number two or number three receiver for this team. And then on defense, they did well. They brought in defensive end Carl Lawson. They signed linebacker Jared Davis from the Lions. Not that he's like some stud, but he can be a solid starter. And we know that they franchised Marcus May at safety. And then the move that I like that I don't think is getting enough attention is the signing of Lamarcus Joyner, most likely going to play safety, but I think he's got a little bit of flexibility in that backfield. And so I'm not like super crazy excited for the Jets, but I think they're making smart moves.
Yeah, one thing you forgot is they signed Tyler Croft, who I thought when he was playing last year played decent in Buffalo. He didn't have all the stats that you would expect from a tight end, but I think he's talented and that could be a good safety blanket for whoever the Jets have at quarterback next year, which is probably going to be Zach Wilson from BYU. I'm hearing rumblings that basically Seattle, if they got rid of Wilson, would want to go after Darnold.
Such a bad choice. But hey, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, who knows?
Yeah, and everything I read is like people in the league when they're asked about Darnold say dude sucks.
Yeah. I mean, he just not shown anything. And, we've talked about that. Is it just because he was stuck with Adam Gase or, like really what's going on there? But I don't know, man. I'd be nervous because there's enough tape on him by now to kind of just say, really, what's there? Like
Yeah, but you would have said the same thing about Tannehill.
I was
Um,
I was
with
hopeful on
Tannehill.
Tannehill because I was telling you before, even though he wasn't like, dominant in Miami, he was putting up 4,000-yard passing seasons for a guy that was actually still fairly new at quarterback coming out of college. And so I
Mhm.
I I like Tannehill, but and I'm glad that it worked out with him in Tennessee because that's a nice story. But yeah, I guess hey, you never know. Maybe Darnold will, surprise some people here at some point. You don't really ever want to see people fail. It's just that, you don't want to back people up that haven't really proven anything either. So
True, true. So I mean, we'll see what happens. I think with the fit for Darnold was Shanahan's offense, which is what um, Salah's bringing to.
oh yeah, yeah, they brought one of their like what the quarterback coach or somebody to run the offense, and so
Yeah,
yeah,
that Lafleur's brother, Mike,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. Yeah, one of the well, yeah, I forget his first name, but yeah, you're right. The yeah, LaFleur. Okay, well, cool. So anything else on the Jets? Or are you ready to move on to the AFC North?
Mm, I'm good to move on that. We hit all the other points I had.
Okay, so first up in the AFC North, we got the Baltimore Ravens, and like Baltimore, they're just like solid at just kind of like sneaky getting talent every year, and not like a ton of these names like just blast off the page, especially if you don't know a thing or two about football. But you can imagine when you're looking at this list that all these guys are going to be a contributor in some way, shape, or form because Baltimore just knows how to stack these guys in. And like the one that I like is defensive lineman Derek Wolf. They're re-signing him, 3-year deal. Just a flexible guy on that line, man, and just one of those guys that just grinds away. They got Pernell McPhee on the defensive line. They re-signed him. I was really hoping they'd hang on to Matt Judon, but it's
Mhm.
okay. They're just always good at like finding those people either on the defensive line or in that linebacker kind of hybrid edge position. And they always get it done, man. And then they signed Kevin Zeitler at guard. That's probably their biggest splash, I'm guessing. I mean, he's getting 22 million over a 3-year deal, and I don't know, man. What do you see and what do you think?
So I think Zeitler signing is. I mean, it's their biggest splash because it's the only like besides the trade for Josh Oliver, which I mean does nothing for me. That's really their only quote true free agent signing. Everyone else is they re-signed or
Resigns,
extended.
yeah,
I think acquiring or signing Zeitler kind of paves the way for them to trade Orlando Brown Jr., which I think is going to happen. I've been saying that all off season that I think he's going to end up being traded, just because they want him to play guard, he wants to play tackle.
yeah. He wants tackle money, and it looked like he earned it when he had to step in last year, and so it's you can't really fault the guy for wanting to get what he's due. It's just tough because when you're the team that drafts him, you're kind of like, hey man, like we should be able to plug and play you where we want, but
Hmm.
it's tough. You got to try and make everybody happy. But I do like you pointing out that yeah, like basically all these are re-signings, and it just goes to show that Baltimore is good at finding talent, and then they're good at hanging on to that talent. And they're going to be a good team, just like they've been these last few years. They know how to stay solid.
Hmm.
Okay, next up we got the Cincinnati Bengals, and these guys have been busy, and I gotta say I like what they've been doing. Um, you know, re-signing Brandon Allen, hey, I mean, we know the future's with Joe Burrow, but they brought in Riley Reef at tackle, former Lion from years back, former Minnesota Viking now. Reef is not like some game changer on the offensive line, but he's steady. And these guys need to get pieces in there to protect Burrow. And so that's a signing that I like. The big one that pops out is defensive end Trey Hendrickson coming from the Saints. The guy's basically coming off a career year, and so it's a little bit risky. But these defensive ends that have production, they get paid, and so 4 years, 60 million. That's let's see. Like he's got to show that he can replicate that now on a new team. And then, like you just kind of look at what they did in the secondary. They had a trio of signings: Jadobi Awuzie, Tony Brown, and the one that I like the most out of them is Mike Hilton from the Steelers. This is a team that's had problems hanging on or finding and hanging on to talent in the secondary, and they threw a bunch of darts. And so I think that these guys, hopefully bring a little bit of stability to that, and it should help this defense in a big way.
I hate what Cincinnati's been doing in free agency so far. I think, yeah, Riley Reef can bring in a little bit to that offensive line. Their biggest need is offensive line. They're not going to get the offensive linemen they need in the draft. They need to start. They needed to go after some of these offensive linemen that are available were available and shore up that offensive line. If you come back this next year with offensive line that's not that much better than the offensive line you had last year, you're just going to get Joe Burrow hurt again, and it doesn't matter what you fucking do on defense if
Yeah,
you
that's a
don't
good
have a
point.
quarterback.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. And we did talk about that a week or two ago that yeah, that should be the priority is keeping that guy safe. And yeah, you're right. Reef, it's not enough. They should be like they did with the quarterback situation. Throw a couple darts on that offensive line. Don't just get one guy here. And what are you waiting for? Because now some of those big name guys they've signed elsewhere. And so yeah, it's a good point. It is risky because yeah, they're kind of like basically banking on landing some solid guys in the draft. And you know, this is a dicey draft, man, with the COVID situation, but that's a whole different story. All right, anything
Hmm.
else on Cincinnati?
No, I'm not impressed with their signings. That's it.
See, I'm looking for the positive, and I'm like, okay, they didn't totally fuck it up, but you're right. The highest priority should be the offensive line. Okay, next up we got the Cleveland Browns, and I'll just let you take this one first because I'm like super positive tonight, and I don't want to be like pumping everybody up and then you picking them apart. So
I'm look. I guess the Browns their biggest acquisition was John Johnson at safety, which I mean that they did have problems in the secondary last year. Is that an acquisition or is that a re-signing?
no, no, they brought him in. He's new. He was from the Rams, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
thought.
we had talked about their defense previously that they had talent at every level, but they really didn't have a whole heck of a lot of depth. And yeah, I think John Johnson, that's a solid pick. And this is a team that really overperformed last year. I mean, I thought they were going to sneak into the playoffs, but they really had a great year. And now you're adding another solid piece on the defense. I do say what you want about it. I like that they took a shot at Tack McKinley at defensive end. I know he's like a boomer bust kind of guy, and he's been mostly bust in his career. But why not have it? It's a reasonable deal, $4 million, man, for a guy that could have production. And then I really like the Malik Jackson signing. I think he's one of those guys that always, it's like defensive tackles, they're a lot like offensive linemen. They're not often in the spotlight unless you're freaking Aaron Donald. But he's a guy that's had a solid, steady career, and so he's going to bring some value to the team.
Yeah, I think one thing I like about what I like Cleveland's defensive line coming in, and just adding pieces to that is it's just going to get better. It's with when you have Miles Garrett and what's the other guy's name?
Oh, Olivier Vernon. Isn't he gone now, or what happened with him? Now I got to look it up because
Yeah, what is the other guy? They have a second another guy there that
yeah, he's a free agent. No, I'm messing something up here. Yeah,
hmm.
that's okay. We'll
Anyways, so but I mean Miles Garrett, you put pieces around him and you're just going to get better.
yeah, yeah.
Defensively. Like I mean he's one of those generational talents at that position. Him, Aaron Donald,
Yeah, they had
on the
Olivier Vernon, who's a free agent now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
no,
popped
that's
it up.
fine.
They had Larry Ogunjobi, who I think signed with Cincinnati, and they
Yeah.
had Sheldon Richardson. Maybe that's who you're thinking of. They also last year had Adrian Claiborne and Andrew Billings.
It might have been Olivier Vernon. I forgot he was a free agent.
Yeah, and I know he was a big piece of that defensive line, but it's yeah, hey, you can't hang on to them all forever.
Yeah, it was probably Olivier Vernon that I was thinking of. I just forgot he was a free agent. Like,
But yeah, so I don't think Cleveland's going crazy. They're just like making some, steady kind of picks here. The John Johnson thing's the big one. And that's okay because they just need to hang on to their guys and keep kind of like organically moving in the right direction, I think.
it might have been Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah, he's solid defensive tackle, big
Yeah.
guy, hold down that line. But all right, so are we good there? You ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, up next we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is one where they had to rework some deals, and they were over the cap, and they brought back Roethlisberger, which isn't really reflected in here, but that's an important thing to note. The one that you know, I don't know what your opinion is on it. I'll just ask you, but I'm not a big fan of them bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster, man. I'm just not sure why they did it. I don't know. Like, what do you think? And really, nothing else that they did jumps off the page here.
So one thing Pittsburgh needed to do, and I said this going into last year, I said this all season, they need a backup quarterback. They need to address the quarterback position. They
Yeah.
need to get a plan for when Roethlisberger's gone. Juju Smith-Schuster is not a number one receiver. Yeah, okay. And they did the shit that I hate. Have you read the terms of his contract? 7 million signing bonus, 1 million base salary, 4 voidable years.
Yeah, it's this cap manipulation. And like here's the thing. All right, you wanted a backup quarterback. I wanted them to go out and get a running back like fucking Chris Carson. And maybe they still will, but I just it's like to me that would have been the priority, man. Get a solid running back that can take some pressure off of Roethlisberger at this advanced stage of his career. The team has wide receivers, man, and they always find wide receivers. They didn't
Mhm.
need to hang on to Juju, but hey, they did what they did. And
Well,
really,
what they
other
what they really needed to do was, and I know you hate this opinion of mine, but they needed to say goodbye to Roethlisberger.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm mixed on it, and I've thought a lot about it since we had that argument, however long back. And I mean, hey, I like the MAC quarterbacks. I went to a MAC school, and it's Roethlisberger's had a heck of a career. But yeah, you're right. At some point, you got to let it go, and this would have been a time to do it when you looked at all the issues they had going on with the cap and a lot of the guys that they lost on this team. It logically would have made sense to cut the cord here at this point in time.
It would have, and you do that, and a rebuilding year is not the end of the world. Like, you take your lumps. Look at Miami. Look at what they were able to do in such a short time frame. Look at I mean, hell, look at New England and what they're projected to be this year based on all these moves compared to last year. That retooling year, reset your cap, and then move forward. I mean, they're so
Yeah.
scared of being sub 500, and who gives a fuck if it's 1 year?
Yeah, I
Just
think that's
chalk
a
it
good
up to a
point.
lost year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because long term, this could end up biting them in the ass. Like you
Hmm.
said, now they've got all these freaking contracts with these voidable years in the future. And so, like, they were like hanging on by a thread for 2021, and they're going to have some skeletons in the closet now for however many years after. And yeah, they could have just said, okay, we're going to break it down a little bit this year, take a step back, and then 2022, we're getting back in the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you, man. It was questionable.
And with the four voidable years or voided years or whatever on Schuster's contract, I mean, they're going to have no choice but to re-sign him to a longer term contract just to avoid hit that the cap hit of, I mean, yeah, it's like $2-3 million whatever a year, but I mean, the cap's going to go up, but they're going to need to do stuff, and
Yeah,
they keep borrowing from the future for this year, and it should be the other way around. You should build it right and get the players in. Don't borrow from the future. I mean, what's Roethlisberger's cap hit going to be next year? What's the year after it? I mean, you have all these
yeah.
future cap hits for players that aren't going to be playing. It's like there's a baseball player that used to play for, I think it was the Padres, that every year on like July 28th he gets like a $20 million check from the organization because of how they structured his contract, and like they're going to be paying him to like the year 2030
Yeah,
because of how they structured his contract. He's not even playing in the league anymore, and they're
yeah,
still paying him $10-20 million a year. It's like, what the fuck?
yeah. It makes no sense. And I would say this about the Steelers. Historically, they have been much smarter about these kinds of situations. And whatever's going on this year, it's almost like they think that this is the last hurrah, and they got to hang on to every little bit that they can because it's really going to fall apart the year after. I don't really know how else to explain it. It seems like there's some kind of fear or something in there, like you're saying, of letting go a little bit and building back. But whatever it is, man, they're doing it. So all right, so let's flip it over here to the AFC South. And the first team on our list here is the Houston Texans. We talked a little bit earlier about the quarterback situation with Ryan Finley and Tyrod Taylor. Uh, you know, the one that I brought up, you weren't a big fan of, but I do like the Mark Ingram signing. Uh, I think, with them signing Philip Lindsay earlier today, or whenever that was, maybe it was yesterday, I like that better. Philip Lindsay is, I was a big fan of his in Denver. And I get what you were saying about Mark Ingram. He's now getting towards probably the end of his rope as a running back in this league. I just remember him always being a solid contributor, and I wanted him to get that workhorse opportunity somewhere. And he kind of almost had it for a year in Baltimore, but it was just never really there for him. Other than those moves, you can see Houston's trying. They've brought in a slew of wide receivers. None of them are really like lighting the world up, in my opinion. They brought in a couple of tight ends, same kind of thing. None of them really lighting up the world. And then offensive linemen, same thing. They got a slew of those guys coming in. you know, I mean, I'm just going down. There's just so many in their freaking list here. I do like that they brought in Desmond King at cornerback, who can also play safety. Uh, you know, I do like that they signed Malik Collins. But all this is it. Everything that happens here is going to depend on what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Like all this will be for naught if that thing ends up blowing in their faces, man.
Yeah, but I think they're positioning themselves with Finley and Tyrod Taylor to be without Watson. Apparently, what I'm hearing with Houston is, and it's probably going to change because of everything that's going on. But people are calling, they're hanging up on people that are trying to give trade offers for Watson.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, hey, at this point, if he's got some legal issues coming, yeah, I'll pick up the phone, but that could derail anything.
yeah, and like I think it's as opposed to Seattle, who's who's calling people
Yeah,
about possibly trading away Russell Wilson. So I mean, there's kind of a disparity there. I also really like the trade for Shaq Lawson. Yeah, he had a little bit of a down year last year and wasn't the same exact. Well, wasn't exactly the same player, but I think he has a lot of potential defensively, and that defense. The reason why the team was 4-12 last year was because of that defense. I mean, yeah, Watson was sacked a lot, so they're making moves and trying to see what sticks on the offensive line, but they lost Watt and
yeah.
they're losing players on defense, and they need to shore up that defense. And once they're able to do that, the team will be better going forward. So I really like trading for Shaq Lawson and see what he has left.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point. Okay, next up we got the Indianapolis Colts, and they made their big move, trading for Carson Wentz. And the only other one on the list here, which is one that I like personally, is that they re-signed Marlon Mack to a one-year deal. I kind of was hoping Mack would go somewhere else and maybe get a shot at a bigger role. But with him coming off the injury, I think it's a safe deal for him. It's a one-year thing. Come back, get healthy, and then maybe you go a run at free agency next year when you can prove that you're ready to get back on the field full time like that. But yeah, their big move, Carson Wentz, pairing him back up with Frank Reich, which is where he had his most success when he was in Philadelphia. Uh, you know, Really, what else do these guys need to be doing? I mean, they have the cap space, so I don't know, they should be doing something. But what do you think's going on here, man?
I don't know. I'm confused about how inactive they've been in free agency. Um, I was surprised that they re-signed Marlon Mack. I kind of figured how Jonathan Taylor played towards the end of the year that he was clearly becoming that running back that they thought they drafted.
Yeah, and they have
And
Naeem Hines, and
exactly,
who's the other guy? They had a good trio of running backs, and
yeah,
this is just a safety net thing. I don't think Marlon Mack's going to be fighting for playing time. I think they just like having him in the stable, you know?
yeah. But I thought Marlon Mack would try to go somewhere else. I didn't
Yeah,
think he would. Maybe he did try to go somewhere else, and there wasn't the market that he thought he would have. But I thought he would go somewhere else as opposed to them. Like I figured, kind of thought, yeah, maybe they might want to re-sign him just for that safety net. But I just thought he'd try to go somewhere else.
yeah, and I think it's because it was an Achilles injury that could be factoring in here, where it's like, hey, it's a safe one-year deal. He can show that he's healthy. He knows he doesn't have to be rushed back because he's basically going to be number four on the depth chart. And then, when he gets backed up to speed, then he makes his move elsewhere. Or maybe they trade him. You never know. But yeah, I mean, here, look, I just pulled up their salary cap because I was wondering where it shook out after the Wentz trade and everything. They're still sitting at almost 40 million in cap space, man. They should
Hmm.
be making moves, and there's still a lot of good guys in free agency. Um, Man, I'm just I don't know. I don't know. What do you do here? Like, what do they got going on at wide receiver? Should they make a run at Kenny Galladay?
I think. See, the thing is with Galladay is I'm hearing that what you call it, Indy's not even that interested in him.
And maybe not. I'm just wondering, what are they waiting for? Like, I guess they're looking at value signings. They're thinking, hey, we don't need to get in on this big wave. And man, I don't know. It's making me nervous, man. And Malcolm Butler's sitting out there. Maybe they go get him, help him in the secondary.
I
I'm just
thought
kind of
Butler was
skimming the
fine.
list, man. What's that?
I thought Malcolm Butler signed?
Oh,
No,
maybe he did, and yeah, I'm just looking at a bad list here.
no. I guess he hadn't. For some reason I had thought I had heard he signed somewhere, but I'm not finding it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is a tough one, but would you roll the dice on Antonio Brown? You need a wide receiver. Do you want him in the locker room though? Is probably the issue. I don't know.
Well, I think in the I think the only situation with Brown in the locker room that can work is what happened in
Tampa
New
Bay.
England
Oh,
or Tampa Bay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tampa Bay,
All
not New
right,
England. That
yeah, here we go. Go out and get Ndamukong Suh. You were talking about putting J.J. Watt on that defensive line. You know, they didn't get Watt. Sue is, yeah, he's at the end of his career, but we saw him last year. He's still got some gas in the tank, man.
hmm
I would like to see him on the same line as DeForest Buckner.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
fucking good.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. So I don't know. They got to do something, but they're being patient. They're going for the value play. Okay, so
Yeah.
next up we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've had money to spend, and they've been pretty active. There's some, I guess, bigger names on here, some maybe not so much bigger names on here. Carlos Hyde signed, which is not bad. He'll be their backup, but that's a good backup to have in my opinion. They landed Marvin Jones, which kind of confuses me for all the talk about him wanting to go to a contender and you end up in Jacksonville. But, they franchised Cam Robinson, smart move there. Um, on the defensive side of the ball, I like the Tyson Alualu pickup. He was like sneaky good in Pittsburgh. They made other moves. They traded for Malcolm Brown on the defensive line. I like that. And then one that you don't really ever hear people talking about, but they brought in Roy Robertson Harris. I like him. He had a good run in Chicago. And Sidney Jones, the quarterback. He's not always been healthy, but they hung on to him. And then they went out and they pair him now with Shaq Griffin from Seattle, which we talked about the defensive backs in this free agency class. There's not like a ton of studs out there, but you're looking and you're getting good guys that can contribute. And so hopefully it ends up being like a pretty good pick for him. I don't know. It's kind of a lot of money, 3 years, 44 million, but it's a team they're a bottom feeder team, so you're kind of in that spot where you got to overpay a little bit sometimes too.
Yeah, and plus they have the cap space to overpay a little bit. I think they still have like close to 50 million that they can spend. Um, so they have it with Marvin Jones. You can't go out there and say you want to go to a fucking contender
No.
and then sign with Jacksonville, who's the worst team in the fucking league last year. I mean, what the fuck? Yeah, they're going to be going forward. They're going to be doing good things, but I mean, you signed what was it, a 2-year deal? I mean, shit. Marvin Jones is getting less money per year than Jamal Agnew.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And honestly, Agnew, he did great, man. 3 years, 21 million.
hmm
I mean, this is a guy that's really special teams only. That's big money, man.
Yeah, but I like that Jacksonville. It seems like would like I mean Rayshon Jenkins. You got Shaq Griffin. I like them signing Shaq Griffin. I was excited when I heard that. Like that
Yeah.
that like made me excited for Jacksonville. The problem with Jacksonville is that you don't really draw fans there, and after a year or two, this team's probably going to end up in London. So
Yeah. And I think the big thing is, they got a whole new regime. They got Urban Meyer coming in, and they're not afraid to pull the trigger and bring guys in. And, they've made a lot of moves in a very short amount of time here. But that's exactly what they should be doing. And so, good for them. Hopefully it
right.
works out. But, like I said, there's not like a ton of like super splashy names here. But they're getting the guys that they want and they're getting them quickly, and that's important.
Yeah, and the thing is it wasn't it just like 3 years ago, 4 years ago they were in the fucking AFC Championship game, up in the
Yeah,
second half on
yeah,
that, and if they had a better quarterback, they probably would have won the game.
yeah.
And to how far they've fallen since then is, I mean, so they've shown that they can build it. It's just you gotta you gotta make you gotta spend the money, and it looks like they're spending the money to see what they can get. And plus, they're gonna have from what I'm hearing, I don't know because I don't remember that far back, but they're that Lawrence is like the best QB prospect to come in the league since John Elway.
Yeah, he's pretty highly rated. And
Yeah.
it's interesting with that because I heard teams have been calling about Gardner Minshew, and they're saying so far he's not on the trade block. And so whether they stick to that or not, maybe they're kind of holding to their guns because they're waiting to see if somebody's going to give them some freaking ridiculous trade, or maybe they're thinking about making a trade and going out and getting Russell Wilson or who the heck knows what. But it's interesting that they've said that he's not available as of yet.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like Lawrence is going to come in. You're going to need that veteran quarterback to kind of show him the ropes in the league and mentor him a little bit. And I think that'd be a great role for Minshew to fall into. I think I don't think Minshew's a starter. I think he's a backup quarterback in the league. I know you disagree, but
Well, I don't have a lot to go off of it. It's more hope than anything, but I like what I saw his rookie year. He didn't look as good this past year, but I just it's like, hey, man, you want to go for the underdog? He's one of those kind of underdog kind of guys.
hmm
I mean, plus he's got a
exactly.
sweet mustache.
Yeah.
You gotta give props for the facial hair, man. I mean, you know that more than anybody. All right. So kicking it over, we got the Tennessee Titans next. Their big move was they brought in Bud Dupree, 5-year deal worth up to 85 million. Man, that was big money. Some of these signings I've looked at and I'm just like, where the frick are these teams coming up with this money, man? But it's like you said it earlier. It's all about manipulation of the cap. And there's like so many moves now that they can make that they just find a way to make this crap work. And so, you know, hey, good for them. They got Bud Dupree. They hung on to Jayon Brown, which I liked. I thought he was good there. You mentioned Janoris Jenkins for something different a couple weeks ago, and they brought him in. I like that move. Um, like it's not aside from the Bud Dupree thing, it's not a super flashy free agency so far, but they're doing the things that they need to be doing. They're like restocking the cupboard, for a team that is a playoff caliber team. It seems par for the course in my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm trying to look because I did mention Jenkins, and where did I think he was gonna go?
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember you dropped the name, and I like Janoris Jenkins. I wanted the Lions to draft him years ago, and obviously that didn't quite work out. But uh,
Yeah.
you know,
I, I don't remember. I don't think I noted it. So
that's all right.
oh
Well, here
well.
let's slide on over to the AFC West, and first team up here is the Denver Broncos. I think the big thing for them was tagging Justin Simmons at safety, and he's now signed a 4-year, $61 million deal. That was solid. I do like that they brought in Ronald Darby at cornerback. I think he's one of these guys that just, it seems like he's always underrated, but he's finally getting paid 3 years, $30 million. And then they re signed Shelby Harris at defensive tackle was good. Mike Boone agreeing to a 2-year contract. There's really, I don't know how much there is to talk about that, but not a ton of moves here. But I like that they hung out or they got some of these guys on the defense, hung on to some of these guys on the defense, especially with them hanging on to Vic Fangio. Like he's a defensive minded guy, and they're bringing back Von Miller. I get that's one that it's not on here, but it's important to note Von Miller is coming back, and this team just needs a quarterback, man.
Sean Watson. Sorry. Did I say something?
Yeah. Well,
So
tell me what's the trade.
I haven't been able to figure out or work out what the exact trade is going to be. I know Denver, they have the number 9 overall pick, so that would be in there obviously. I think just two teams that I'm hearing Deshaun Watson could go to or could be traded to. Denver is one of them, and San Francisco is the other one.
Okay.
And I'm also hearing that Deshaun Watson has told the Texans that he would accept a trade to those two locations. Those are his preferred locations. Miami is not a location he wants. He does not want to go to Miami. He does not want to go to New York, is what I'm hearing.
Wow. I mean, I could understand not wanting to go to New York, but not wanting to go to Miami, that kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't know what's up with that, but I'm hearing and Denver, I mean Denver's desperate for a quarterback.
Yeah, they are.
So we'll see. We have to kind of see what happens also with all the stuff that's going on with Watson, but I could see Denver going after him because they've been chasing that quarterback. And this team, they have talent on that offense. They have talented receivers.
Yeah, they do.
They have a tight end. Their offensive line is, I mean, it's
They do need help
average
on the
above.
offensive line, but it's getting
It's
better.
average,
Yeah.
but exactly it's getting better. And so you have and the defense carried this team last year,
Yeah.
and they didn't really lose a lot of those key pieces to the defense. Plus they're getting Von Miller back. This team is ready to win if they had a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, I'd like to see them make a trade, it's exciting if they can pull it off. Okay, so next up we got the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is one of these deals. They went out, they got Joe Tooney from the Patriots, 5-year deal, 80 million. It's just like, where the hell are they coming up with the money, man? I don't get it. Other than that, yeah, they re-signed Mike Remmers, they re-signed Taco Charlton, Kyle Long coming out of retirement. I forget how he put it. He was in the news for, he's like reviving his career here, but very modest deal, 1 year, 1.5 million. And then they signed tight end Blake Bell. Like the offensive line situation was the big deal. Eric Fisher's gone. Who was the other guy? Mitchell Schwartz is gone. And then they upgrade at guard in a major way. And so, you know, I think it's good for them. I just, like I said, I'm just wondering where the money comes from sometimes.
You you do have to wonder where the money comes from sometimes with them. But one thing that they did do was for Mahomes' cap hit this year is 7 million. True, they restructured at the
Yeah.
last minute Travis Kelsey to get under the cap, and Kelsey, even though they're paying him like what are they? What? Let me look the cash. Like some ridiculous number is the cash. Okay, that's not who I tried to open up. What the fuck? Don't tell me that.
Today, Junior. No, hey, you take your time. We'll have to
Well,
speed it
no,
up a little
like
bit for the
I
NFC, but yeah,
yeah. So, anyways, they restructured both of them. Like Mahomes' cash amount this year is 2021. He's getting 22 million, and it's like a 7 million cap hit.
yeah,
And then Kelsey's a similar situation. Like he's getting some ridiculous amount of cash, and it's like a $5 million cap hit. He's
yeah.
getting
They know how to play ball to keep the team on the field around them.
yeah, his cap
Yeah,
hit's less than 6 million, and he's getting 13 million
yeah.
in
I
cash
got you.
this year. So they were able to restructure those guys and get under the cap, and they actually now have 24 million additional that they still could spend.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Okay, next up we got the Las Vegas Raiders. This team has been busy. I don't really know if it's been good busy or not, but we'll talk about it. The one signing that pops out to me is bringing in Kenyon Drake at running back when they've already got Josh Jacobs. It's just like, okay, I mean, maybe they're moving more into a run first, like run heavy kind of team, and they just wanted the horsepower. I'm not really totally sure. But at the same time, if you're doing that, they're like parsing off pieces of that offensive line to make cap space. And so it just to me it's like conflicting. It's like if you want to
Mm-hmm.
go run heavy, you should be hanging on to that offensive line, man. And so I don't know. And they brought in John Brown. Okay, cool. They got Nick Martin at center, which I'm sure, when you look at the guys that they got rid of, Trent Brown and whoever else, Rodney Hudson, Nick Martin, I'm sure they're getting him at a good price. I don't know what it is, but compared to those guys, I'm sure it's a good price. Uh, I'm just not sure. I look at the defense. They got Yannick Ngakoue. I do like that. I think he's one of those guys where I think every year we are expecting him to do more than he does, though. And so I don't know. And then yeah, I don't know. I mean, the rest of this I'm just not like totally thrilled about, to be honest. What is your take on the Raiders, man?
Ma- Well, first of all, Nick Martin, from what I'm hearing, they brought him in to be the backup center. They the
Yeah,
guy
that's
that was behind the backup center they had last year, they apparently really really liked, and he's gonna be a starter coming in. From what I'm hearing, I don't know why the fuck they went out inside Kenyon Drake. Yeah, you can make the argument that Jacobs gets hurt a lot, but still, you had you could have re-signed Jalen Richard, who did decent when Jacobs was out. Yeah, I mean, you have the pieces there. The offensive line, they're taking the offensive line and getting rid of pieces
Yeah.
and it was a good offensive line last year, and they're not spending where they did. But aside from Ngakoue, their defense was the issue last year, and they're
Yeah.
not shoring up that defense. They're not going to shore up that defense in the draft. So I mean, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah, it confuses me. I don't know. I've wanted to be behind the Raiders with Gruden and Mayock, and this could be the year where I jump off that bandwagon because I don't know. I guess I will have to see what they do with the rest of free agency and the draft, and maybe something brings me back a little bit. But I just kind of it's like how much time can you give Gruden to bring this team around? And I know Mayock's not been there as long, but you know. I've looked up to Mayock for a long time, and I'm just kind of scratching my head with some of this. But you know,
Well,
they
one thing,
they
one
get they
thing
get
I'm
paid the big bucks, not me. So
one thing I'm hearing about the Matt Gruden relationship is Gruden has final say.
okay,
So it's the problems aren't necessarily Matt. I think the issues are Gruden.
yeah, and that's tough, man. When you have a head coach that has that much power, I don't know. I think you need to have the proper separation between a head coach and a GM. They need to be focused on different things, but that's
Hmm.
that's a whole separate story. Let's move on here because we still got to get to the NFC. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. They didn't bring back Hunter Henry, but they did sign Jared Cook. It's a 1-year deal. I think that was a very good replacement, especially with the young up and coming quarterback. They brought in center Corey Linsley. I liked that move a lot because you want to protect your quarterback, unlike Cincinnati last year. And then the one that, I mentioned this guy last week, Michael Davis at cornerback. They re signed him, and I think that was a smart move. He's one of these guys that he's a solid performer that just like doesn't really ever get any attention. So that was a good thing.
I agree. Corey Linsley, I understand. I was sad that Hunter Henry went somewhere else, but you had to prioritize the offensive line to protect
Herbert,
what the fuck's Herbert. Thank you. I was like, it was Burrows. I
we
could,
lift each other up. We lift each
yeah.
other up here.
So I
Yeah.
really like the signing of Corey Linsley. You had to prioritize that. I agree on the cornerback. Um, I think I think they need Jared Cook. He's not Hunter Henry, but he can be that check down, that safety blanket for Herbert going forward.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we got to see what they do in the draft now. This is a team that, man, they've got an exciting young quarterback, and yeah, they got to keep moving in the right direction.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, so flipping it over to the NFC, we're going with the NFC East, and I don't want to put too much pressure on us, but we probably got to move it along a little bit quicker for these next 16 here. Otherwise, otherwise we'll be doing this till 10:30, 11. Hey, we can do whatever, man. It's our show. So, yeah, why am I putting pressure on us? But okay, so Dallas, the big thing, they finally locked down Dak to a longer term deal. Um, you know, aside from him, they've got kind of like a little scatter shot of signings. I'm not like totally I'm not like seeing any kind of big deals here. I don't know. Like none of these names are really sticking out to me.
I agree. It's just like it's kind of like who.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I don't think Dallas has entered free agency yet. I don't think they realize it started. They just kind of signed Dak and like, okay, when's free
Yeah.
agency start? And then it's gonna come to the draft. Like, when did free agency start? Like, we didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I mean I'm showing that they're sitting on 13.5 million in space. And so maybe that they're just being conservative and they know that they can't really make some big splash, but I don't know. I just feel like they could be doing more.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so next up we got the New York Giants, and hey, this was one I read about earlier. They signed quarterback Mike Glennon to be their backup. Not a huge deal, but hey, the guy's still kicking it in the league. Good for him. And the one that I liked was just that they franchised Leonard Williams. I think he's one of those kinds of talents that you don't let walk, especially when they traded to bring him in, a year or two ago, whenever the heck that was. And he's now signed a 3-year deal for 63 million, and that's good. Other than that, I do like that they signed Reggie Ragland. I know he's like kind of like a part-time linebacker, but the dude is a thumper, man, and they definitely need help at linebacker. And so, even though he's probably not a full-time guy on the field, he'll help them out a little bit. And I almost skipped right over this one, but this is a good one. Is Kyle Rudolph, the 2-year, $12 million deal? I think he landed in a good spot, and I think it's going to help Danny Dimes. Evan Ingram has been injured and unreliable. Kyle Rudolph is steady. Plus, he's a more complete tight end. He can block, and this is a team that's had issues on the offensive line. And so I definitely liked that pick, man. What do you think of the Giants?
I love the signing of Kyle Rudolph. Look, last year they blew the lead against Philadelphia, and you had Evan Ingram. The ball went off the tip of his fingertips, and you have a tight end that can catch the ball there, like Kyle Rudolph, as opposed to Evan Ingram. You probably win the division, go to the playoffs. I know they would have still been sub 500, but it's still, you're in a playoff and you're in the playoffs and you can show you're going in the right direction, not kind of sitting idle. And
Yeah.
so I really love them bringing Rudolph in.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, next up we got the Philadelphia Eagles. And so they've been quiet, which, makes sense because they've been hamstrung with cap space. The big news was trading away Wentz, really, which isn't really noted here, but they agreed to terms on a new deal with Hassan Ridgeway at defensive tackle and agreed to terms on a new deal with safety Andrew Adams. Nothing spectacular going on there. They also restructured Darius Slay, which is not on here, but it's worth noting. And it's just tough. I mean, Philly, I'm pulling them up right now. I mean, they're still, I'm showing 5 million over the cap, so they can't really be active in free agency. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing, and actually this is going to be an interesting trade. I'm hearing eventually Ertz is going to be traded to Buffalo.
That would be a sweet trade. I think
Yeah.
Ertz should get out of there with the way it ended last year. It wasn't on good terms, and I think he would be a great fit in Buffalo.
Hmm. And I think I agree 100% with you there. He'd be a great fit in Buffalo, and I mean he could. Buffalo is looking impressive, but they're in probably one of the toughest divisions now.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
agree
mean,
with
it
that.
was before it was New England and everyone else. Now it's New England, Miami, and Buffalo are all solid teams, and you have the Jets.
That's getting exciting. Yeah. And the Jets. Okay, next up we got the Washington football team, and I liked that they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. I thought that was cool, and I hope it works out well for them because they're a playoff caliber team, especially on that defensive side of the ball. They brought in Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. That one I'm not, it's a little flashy. I guess I'm just curious to see how they're going to use him because he was more of a gadget guy in Carolina. Is he going to be in that kind of gadget role with these guys? Or are they going to try and make him more of a traditional wide receiver, which I think would be a mistake? And then they franchise tag Brandon Scherf. You hang on to a guy like that. He's just rock solid. And then, they brought in William Jackson at cornerback, 3-year, $40.5 million deal. I think that was good because Ronald Darby's gone, and so they backfilled him there. A couple other guys here and there, man. What did you think of these guys?
So I actually really like them bringing in Samuel. I think I had I had Fuller number 2, but I think Samuel could be a good number 2 or a slot receiver for them. I mean he puts up 600 to 800 yards. You have McLaurin there, so I
Yeah,
think it's a good to be on for the opposite side. Fitzpatrick's a stopgap. It's they're sticking to their plan, and I I really I really don't know why they signed Lamar Miller. Sorry, not Lamar Jackson.
yeah. It's like the Marlon Mack thing. You just want another guy in the cupboard in case you need him.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
and
really all it was.
bring it back, Sheriff. And I didn't have a note on this one, so I'm looking at it. William Jackson.
Yeah, yeah. He's a solid cornerback, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I he was with Cincy.
He was with Cincinnati, and I had him listed as a possible franchise tag candidate for Cincinnati, but they let him go. So,
Yeah, 4 years, pass defense 41. Wow, that's pretty good.
and they had the need with Darby going, so I think they did
Yeah,
well. I think they did well there.
yeah, I like that. I like that move too. So I think they're they have their plan and they're sticking to it and not gonna go deviate too far outside of it. I like what they're doing there. They're
Yeah.
slowly, methodically changing that team over.
All right, so here's where it starts to get dicey, James. We're going to the NFC North, and we're going to kick it off with the Chicago Bears here. They signed Andy Dalton to a 1-year, $10 million deal. They have told him he's going to be the starter. I like Andy Dalton, and so I'm fine with them trying it. I just think that this team is desperate, and I'm starting to wonder, is it the quarterback, or is it Nagy, or is it just a bad combination of both of them? And, maybe it's not going to matter, man. I just don't know. But they franchised Allen Robinson, so he's got a true number one. They got Darnell Mooney. He looked pretty good. And then, aside from that, just kind of kicking down the list here, you know, they re-signed Cairo Santos at kicker. I mean, that's the biggest news I can pull up here because kicker has been an issue for Chicago for a few years now. They think they got their guy. They're locking him down for 3 years, 9 million. What do you think of the Bears, man?
Well, if I was a Bears fan, I'd be fucking livid with what this team is doing. Um, they currently sit 10 million, almost $11 million over the cap. And what
Oh
the fuck
shit,
have
I
they
didn't see
done?
that. Yeah.
What have they done? Nothing. They brought in a bunch of nobodies and Andy Dalton, who's way past. Well, first of all, Andy Dalton can't win in prime time as it is, and secondly, you had the chance to go out and trade for fucking Russell Wilson, and you bring in Andy Dalton because you couldn't figure out how to get the goddamn trade done.
Yeah.
Just if it weren't for Gettleman, and if it were Pace
Yeah.
would
What's
be
his
the
face? Yeah. Yeah.
worst GM in the league. There's one more in there too, and I'm forgetting who it is, but it's if it weren't for Gettleman and nah, oh well.
It's
There's
all right.
one in there that's slightly worse than Pace. Like I mean that, but all three of them fucking suck, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't even know
It's
why they're still employed. They should have fired them after last year, but because they backed into the playoffs, let's keep them
yeah.
on for another year.
Yeah. It's safe to say they're going into the season on the hot seat.
Yeah.
All right, so next up we got the Detroit Lions, and I mean, hey, we know about the trade with Stafford and Jared Goff. That's the biggest news of the offseason, maybe the biggest news of the offseason. And it's definitely the biggest news of the offseason for the Lions. As you had mentioned, they brought in Tim Boyle at backup quarterback. I liked the Jamal Williams signing at running back. I know Swift is our guy, but I think Jamal Williams can be a good complement to Swift. And then at wide receiver, it looks like Galladay is going to be gone. I don't know. Maybe we still get him back, but they brought in Tyrell Williams. It's kind of a risk reward pick. If he can be healthy, he can be a contributor. And then I did like that they brought in Brashad Perriman. He's another one of these kind of boomer bust kind of guys, more likely going to be a bust, but we're going to give him opportunity. And then the thing that I really liked with the Lions, but I'm questioning the price tag, was that they re-signed Romeo Okwara at defensive end, 3 years, 39 million. It just seemed a little too rich for me, with him really having like the one big year. And I know it was really more than just the one big year, but it just, I don't know, man. I mean, the guy, he got paid, and I'm happy for him. I just was hoping we could get him at a little better of a price.
Well, so apparently it becomes fully guaranteed at the start of the league year next year, 2022. But I really like kind of flying under the radar is acquiring Brockers via
Oh
trade,
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you
and
mentioned that.
then
Yeah,
and then and then and then signing him like for a new 3-year deal. Um, so that I mean they kind of have the pieces. They're starting to build those pieces on defense. Get them. I think I like bringing in Tyrell Williams signing. I'm on the fence about Brashad Perriman, but
it's
we'll see.
just because for me it's the price point. It's like, okay, you're not paying a lot to take a look at the guy, and if you go back not last year but the year before, he had that incredible run at the end of the year in
Hmm.
Tampa Bay with Jameis Winston, and so it's like there's some potential there, and I think for $3 million, it's worth seeing if we can get a little bit of that out of him.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing, there's no way in hell Galladay's going to even consider coming back. Apparently, things did not end well with Galladay.
Okay,
I haven't heard details, but there's something happened there with Detroit and Galladay, and it's not really that amicable between
that's
the
fine.
two.
Send him to New England because they're going to need more help at wide receiver than just Nelson Aguilar. And if you're going with Cam Newton, Galladay's a good fit for that. Galladay's a possession receiver. You throw the ball up, he'll get it. But,
Hmm.
I mean, hey, it doesn't work out all the time. And he was hurt for most of last season. So I'm not going to cry if we got to lose the guy. It's just, it's nice when you can get like that kind of homegrown talent that you draft and he ends up working out. And it's just, but it's not working out. So, okay. Next up here, we got the Green Bay Packers. And the only thing on the list here is re-signing Aaron Jones, 4 years, 48 million. This is one where I don't know what it was. I had my heart set on him going to Miami. I thought that would
Hmm.
have been a sweet landing spot for him. But hey, that's great. He's staying in Green Bay. I think he's a really good running back. And up until getting this contract, I think that they kind of messed with him a little bit about how much they really liked him, and whether he was going to be the guy or if they were going to hand it off to A.J. Dillon. And this is good. This is good. He's good for this team.
Yeah. So I was surprised that they re-signed him, especially with drafting AJ Dillon last year. I mean, AJ Dillon was clearly supposed to be his replacement, and they were supposed to let him go, and he was supposed to go to Miami. I agree. Like that would be fucking
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And so maybe they should have used that money elsewhere, you know?
Right. But this is what I expect from the Green Bay Packers. They don't make big splashy moves in free agency.
No. Okay, next up we got the Minnesota Vikings. And I tell you, man, the one that stuck out to me for the Vikings was signing Patrick Peterson at cornerback. I know Zimmer has been trying to find the right cornerback for a few years now. And I know Peterson is at the the decline phase of his career, but I think he's going to give Zimmer everything he wants in that cornerback position. And so, it just anytime you see a competitive team, a rival team rather, getting a guy, it's like, I don't like that. But I still think the Vikings got a lot of work to do. And when I look at their other signings, I'm not really seeing anything that's like earth shattering. Dalvin Tomlinson, 2-year, $22 million. That one, it's worthy of noting. But these other guys, they're not popping off the page to me.
So I like the Dalvin Tomlinson signing. I love the Peterson signing. I think he will fit well there on defense. The thing with Dalvin Tomlinson that has to slap a Giants fan in the face, and this is why I say Gettleman's like the worst GM in the league, is last year in the offseason going into last season, they could have traded Dalvin Tomlinson for a draft pick. Yep. And instead he ends up walking for nothing. And it's just like, and this is the second time that they did the same thing and they lost, and the guy signed. I forget the first one, but it was just a couple of years ago where Minnesota signed somebody else that the Giants could have traded, didn't trade, and then lost in free agency.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm a huge advocate for making the trade. You always want to get something. Don't let a guy go and not get anything for him. And, maybe they get a compensatory pick, but still, I don't know. I just, I think you need to be more proactive.
Right. But overall, I like what Minnesota is doing. They're putting some little pieces here and there, taking some shots at some people that could turn out to be something.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on here. Next up, we got the NFC South, and first up is the Atlanta Falcons. Very quiet for them, which makes sense because they basically are at about a break even on the cap. They acquired tight end Lee Smith in a trade, signed linebacker Brandon Copeland, and signed safety Eric Harris. Nothing flashy, but they can't really be flashy unless they want to make some big moves with their existing guys.
Yeah, so Atlanta needs a running back, and I think they're gonna end up trading their first round pick and probably toward a little bit later in the first round or early second round go after ETN at running back. I don't see Atlanta making any real other moves in free agency because they just don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah,
the space to do that.
And you would think that they would have been doing more to restructure some guys and free up some space. And the fact that you're just not hearing anything is a bad sign, in my opinion. I don't know. Something about that just doesn't sit right with me.
Well, they did restructure Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, just to get him to the break-even point. I guess I'm just expecting more when you hear about all these teams doing all these creative things, and you do still have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. It's like, if I was them, I'd be wheeling and dealing it, trying to make a run here before it's too late, because any year now these guys are going to drop off.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're basically sitting in purgatory, man. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, so they restructured him, and this year, I think the cap hit half of what it would have been.
Okay.
And it's his cap hit. Matt Ryan's cap hit this year is 26 million. So
Yeah.
it's like, good lord, like, yeah, they save 15. No. Yeah, they saved like 26 million, 23 million, something like that, some ridiculous number. So, I mean, they have work to do still for the cap, but they desperately need a running back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially with Arthur Smith at coach, they
Yeah.
need that workhorse, that bell cow.
Yeah, and I mean, I would almost say maybe they go after Chris Carson if they could free up some space, but he's not the kind of running back that they need. They need a guy that can catch the ball a little bit too, and
Hmm.
I don't see him being the right fit. I'm just kind of skimming the rest of the list here. Yeah, I think like you're saying, yeah, doing something in the draft is probably the way to go for them. I mean, Duke Johnson's sitting out there, I guess, looking at the top 101. He could be a good fit in Atlanta, and they could probably get him at a good price. But yeah, it's about the cap space, man. They gotta figure it out.
Yeah,
Um, okay, well, and James White's out there too. He's another one of those pass catching kind of guys. But they go if they go with the draft, they get the younger guy. Maybe they get a more all around kind of balance back. We'll see what happens. Okay, so next up we got the Carolina Panthers. This is one that I like what they did on defense. They
hmm,
signed linebacker Denzel Perryman, and they signed linebacker Hassan Reddick. And the Reddick deal's 1 year, 8 million, and I don't really know the Perryman thing. It just shows it's 2 year. But I think those guys are both going to come in and be key contributors right off the bat. And this is a team that was already trending in the right direction. And then we know that they franchise tag Taylor Moton on the offensive line. I think that was good. These other signings that they've got, they're helping fill in some of the blanks somewhere. But those were the big ones to me.
I agree. I really like the Reddick signing. Like, I I think he can be that player that they're looking for there. Um, I wanted to see if I could quickly find uh, what they ended up paying Perriman, but I'm not.
That's okay. If you come across it, let me know. And in the meantime, we'll kick it over to the New Orleans Saints. They are next up on our list here. These guys were like the master freaking magicians of working the cap. I mean, I never in a million years would have thought that they would have done it. And not only did they do it, they did it and they freaking franchise tagged Marcus Williams at safety and they brought back Jameis Winston at quarterback. I just am blown away that they were able to do that and hang on to those two guys. But good for them. Their other moves, they're under the radar kind of stuff. But I just was impressed just off of that alone. So,
Yeah, I mean, they got under the cap. Currently, it looks like they're a little bit over 1 million over, but there's work that can be done there. I think Jameis Winston. I think that he's going to be the quarterback they need, and because last year their issue was Breeze can throw the ball downfield, and in fact, if they would have benched Breeze and put Winston in the playoffs against Tampa Bay, maybe they win that game.
yeah, we know Winston, he's got a solid arm. I mean, he launched that one in the playoffs, didn't he, for a touchdown or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, let's just see if he can keep control of the turnovers because that's been his problem his whole career. But yeah, I'm interested to see how that shakes out. All right, so next up we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and James. I don't
they
know
kept
how.
all three of them.
Yeah, I'm just dumbfounded. Like, and they brought Gronk back. I mean, like it just is like, does the cap even matter? Like, how is Atlanta sitting in no man's land when all these other teams are just like, oh, we're just gonna keep everybody. Watch us.
Oh, and they have $3.5 million of space left.
Yeah, Yeah, and so I mean, hey, they're obviously going to be a front runner for the Super Bowl again, and that's cool, man. I'm glad they hung on to these guys because these are all like when I talk about Levante David and Shaq Barrett, those to me are Buccaneers. Godwin, I could have seen them letting him go if they would have hung on to Antonio Brown or maybe did something else there. And then Gronk, it's like, well, you got to keep Gronk if you're keeping Brady, and so it just kind of I like it, man. I'm excited for these guys. I can't believe it, but it's they freaking pulled it off.
Well, yeah, but didn't they kind of pull Shaq Barrett off the scrap heap? Like, wasn't he in Denver before he was in Tampa Bay?
I don't think.
Yeah, he was. He
Oh
was
man,
he he was in Denver, and he was barely playing.
I
Like
don't even remember. Oh yeah, yeah, he was an undrafted free agent. Yeah, yeah. See, I'm
yeah,
I'm, I'm yeah,
and
I'm
and
I'm
then
just thinking recent memory with him. Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, they kind of pulled him off the scrap heap, and so I love the fact that they re-signed him and gave him his payday.
yeah.
And I just and also like they're re-signing all their players, and
I
it's
know,
just
man.
imagine this defense is going to be just as good as it was last year, and on
Or
top of
better.
that, or better. And on top of that, you're going to have Brady that's going to have another year in this system and going to kind of understand it and get used to it. I mean,
Yeah. That's
they
the
could,
scary thing. Yeah, that's the scary
it's
thing is that
scary.
you're bringing back so many of the same guys, and they're going to have another year to gel and go to that next step. It's yeah, what can I say? I'm looking forward to it, man. And
Hmm.
frick, if Brady gets 8, holy shit. Uh, all right, so we got our last division here, the NFC West, and the Arizona Cardinals are up first. I like the trade for Rodney Hudson at center. And obviously we've already talked about the J.J. Watt thing. That's old news at this point, but I think that it's a big deal. The one that is like a little kick in the balls to me, man, that it like totally flew under the radar this week is that they freaking signed Matt Prater, dude. Like,
Hmm.
how did the Lions let Prater go? He was like one of the I don't know, dude. I was liking having Matt Prater in Detroit, but hey, good for him. He's going to a good team, and we talked about it when they let go of Zane Gonzalez. They needed something more from that position, and they're going to get it from Prater, so
Hmm.
that's good.
And they found that upgrade that I said that they were looking for.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was out there. I didn't even realize Prater was a free agent. I thought we had him locked
Neither did
down.
I.
So
I
I
thought I
what?
thought I didn't think he was a free agent. I love what Arizona's doing. I mean,
Yeah,
they signed AJ Green this week, which will be good, a good
it's a boomer
receiver. I think
bust.
he's going to be like the number two, number three, even number four receiver there. And I like that. I like that he can stretch the field, so you can have two players stretching the field on both sides. With
Christian Kirk.
yeah,
Oh,
Kirk
oh,
and
oh, oh
no,
Hopkins.
not Kirk, Hopkins. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hopkins, they're addressing. I mean, they had issues on the offensive line last year a little bit, and that's kind of like when. Wow, I'm just drawing blanks on names. What's the quarterback's name? Kyler Murray. When Kyler Murray towards the end of the year, he kind of started to drop off because I think he was hurt because he was being hit too much.
Yeah,
So they're addressing those options. So I love it. I'm really excited what I'm seeing in Arizona, and
yeah.
like in this division, it was a tough division last year, and it's just got tougher.
Oh yeah. I mean, J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones. That I mean just gets me excited right there. And then you look at all the other things to be excited about with this team. Yeah,
Mhm.
man, they're on the move. They're having a good offseason so far. Okay, so next up we got the Los Angeles Rams. The big news for them was trading Goff to Detroit and getting Stafford in return. I'm happy with it. I think they're happy with it. Hey, we'll see how it shakes out. And then really they re-signed Leonard Floyd. Pretty big deal for him, 4 year, $64 million contract. Uh, quiet otherwise. John Johnson left the Rams. I'm sure they wish they could have kept him, but um, I think that they're happy because their priority was getting a different quarterback, and they got their guy. So,
hmm
um, I'm not sold that Stafford's going to all of a sudden get them in the Super Bowl, but I don't have a crystal ball either. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, I like the fact that they brought back Leonard Floyd. I, I think that was one of their key things. I think they have to kind of shore up a little bit on the back end of the defense. But I mean, they have very minimal space to do that. In
Yeah.
fact, they're over by 5 million, so they're not going to be very active. They're going to try to get the remaining pieces they need in the draft.
Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers.
When did
Whether you like it or not, I love that they brought back the fullback, Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, hey, he was almost a freaking Super Bowl hero if Garoppolo would have done his job. But I like the fullback getting some love, man. 5-year contract, 27 million, good for him. And then the whole Trent Williams thing kind of blows my mind. Like I thought for sure he was going to be gone if they didn't franchise tag him, but
hmm
they locked him in for a massive deal, 6 years, 138 million. And then on top of that, it looks like they got center Alex Mack, which has the connection to Shanahan from Atlanta. This is a team that, and they brought back Jason Verrett at cornerback. I think that they're doing good things to stay competitive. And I'm impressed with it, to be honest. I think the draft is going to be the next piece, and it just a lot of it is it still kind of hinges on Garoppolo. Can he get them where they need to go, or is there still a trade hanging out there, or whatever? I don't know, but they have a lot of pieces all around this team, man.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of pieces all around the team. They the only issue with this team last year is the quarterback position, and I'm sorry, which going forward is really the quarterback position. Last year they had a whole shitload of injuries, and it's not surprising they had this season. They had a better season than I thought they would with all the injuries they had
Yeah,
last year.
for sure.
I
Yeah.
I like the fact that they're bringing Verrett back. I love the Mac signing. I love the fact that they found a way to keep Williams.
Yep. Yep.
It's it blows my mind how much they're paying him, but apparently 3 of the 6 years is an option. I didn't hear that until I
Okay.
just read it just now. So it has to be exercised by April 1st, 2023, which, come on, Trent Williams, unless something happens, he's
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 legit.
he's legit.
Yeah.
And I just I think there's a trade out there that I think they could be a little bit aggressive going after Watson, but I don't think Watson's going to end up there. Possibly, still hearing rumblings of Garoppolo being traded to New England,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And they have 10.5 million of cap space, so that, they can still make some more moves, but I like a lot of these signings.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been impressed with what they've done. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they've been a good pair together so far. It's been good in San
hmm
Fran. Okay, so last but not least, we got the Seattle Seahawks. And here we go. I was out there talking about Chris Carson earlier. Apparently, he re signed on a 2-year deal. So
Yeah,
somehow
when
I
did
missed
that
that.
happen?
Yeah, and he's still, hey, he's still sitting on the NFL top 100 list. So they got to do some updates here. But that's okay. Good for him. Uh, you know, Pete Carroll likes him, even though he's kind of been in the doghouse a little bit here and there. And he's been a solid, north-south runner for this team. And so I think that that's good that they brought him back. Uh, Other than that re-signing, the big news for them um, is the trade for Gabe Jackson. Gives them a big boost on the offensive line, which is something Russell Wilson was wanting. And I still think they got more work to do on that offensive line, but it helps. And then the third thing that I think is worth mentioning is that they signed tight end Gerald Everett. He's actually getting pretty good money on a 1 year deal, 7 million. But he's got potential, and he was in the Rams system with a couple guys that he was competing for touches with, and I think there's potential there, and it could be unlocked in Seattle.
True. And I just looked it up. Apparently, the news of the Chris Carson signing happened 2 hours ago, which
Oh,
was
we were
what
probably just getting started.
a few minutes after we started talking before we started the show. So this seems big move is they're going to trade Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is being traded. He will be traded this offseason. He will be traded before the draft. And everybody's saying, well, it's a $39 million dead cap hit. If they keep Russell Wilson, it's a $32 million cap hit. So it's only $7 million difference. And oh, look at that. They're about $7 million over the cap.
Yeah, hey, it's just so crazy to think a guy like him could be traded, but anything can happen, man. Anything can happen.
They they just don't like each other. Russ doesn't like Seattle. Seattle doesn't like Russ. Russ wants
Yeah.
credit. Seattle doesn't want a guy that wants credit at quarterback because it's all about the defense there.
Yeah, the defense that's faded away over the years.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's basically, let's just call it phase one of NFL free agency. I'm guessing we're probably going to do a pretty similar segment next week because there's going to be that whole second round of moves that we start to hit. A lot of these next ones are going to be more value signings, but there's still a lot of guys from the NFL top 100 list that are hanging out there. And so, unless you want to come up with a different agenda, that's probably the path for us for this next week. But before we close it down, we got to do our question of the week. And so for this week, I'm going to keep it simple enough. And this is just for anybody out there. I just want to know, how's your favorite team doing so far in this offseason, in your opinion? And, James, obviously, we're diehard Detroit Lions fans. Normally, we're bashing the shit out of them because we're not happy with the moves that they're making. But right now, I'm trying to put things in perspective. I still think 2021 is basically a wasted year for the Lions. They've got to gut the roster. They've got to make a lot of changes. But I do like what they're doing. I liked the Stafford trade, bringing Goff in return. I liked bringing in Jamal Williams to pair with, DeAndre Swift. We talked about the wide receivers. Maybe these guys bust and they don't do anything, but it's worth a shot when you know that we're going to have an uphill battle. And I do like the defensive line moves, keeping Romeo Aquara and bringing in Brockers. I think the Lions, they're doing okay so far, and I got the bar really low for them, and so right now they're succeeding my expectations, which are very low. But that's, take it for what it is. What do you think, man?
I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said, and we could we could, it could be a lot worse as a Lions fan. We've seen a lot worse in in the off season with what they do, and they're not overspending. I mean, maybe overspend a little bit on Aquara, but for the most part, they're not way overspending on these players, trying to get them bring in and trying to build it right. And hey, we could be the Bears.
Well, I just hope we beat the Bears this year. That's the goal. Beat the Bears. Don't be the worst team in the NFC North, and show a little bit of fight. I think we got the coach that's the gritty kind of fire them up and beat somebody up kind of coach, and it's okay. I'm pacing myself. It's now a marathon for the Lions in their rebuild. It's not a sprint. There were so many
Exactly.
shitty deals from that last regime that they got to get out from under still, that yeah, I think they're slow and steady. It can win the race. So,
Yeah, take a year, kind of reset on the cap, and then I mean next year you're gonna have a
They'll
decent
have some
amount of
options,
room
man. Yeah, they'll have
and
some
some
options next
options,
year.
some
Yeah.
options to start going after it. I agree 100%.
All right, cool. Well, I guess that's it for tonight, unless you got any final thoughts there.
No, that's about all I had.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, so for anybody who's still watching, we appreciate the support. Definitely hit us up with your comments for Name That Stadium. And you can do the same thing. Pop your comments in for the question of the week. If you like the show, give us that thumbs up. If you really like the show, hit that subscribe button. And James, as always, man, it's been a blast. I will catch up with you later.
All right, sounds good.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.